So there's this new cute little thing on the internet that I doubt that any of you have heard anything about over the past few months, called ChatGPT. If you haven't heard anything about it, basically it's a chatbot that you can ask pretty much any question, and it uses the power of artificial intelligence to give you an answer. Well, I got kinda curious about it, and I decided to check it out. I wanted to find out how good of a handle a computer program can get on philosophical principles such as Taoism, and the results, frankly, shocked me. What is Taoism? So as I read off these responses, I'm not going to read the whole thing because a lot of them are kind of long, but I will leave them up on the screen so that you can read the whole thing if you want to, but I'm just going to read a few of the highlights. Taoism is a philosophical and spiritual tradition that originated in ancient China. It is based on the teachings of the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, who is believed to have lived during the 6th century BC. Okay, so I wasn't seeing anything so far that seemed terribly surprising. I mean, you would expect a computer program to be able to produce a pretty standard encyclopedia explanation like this. I also asked who Lao Tzu was and got a pretty similar result. But I wanted to try and push this clever little chatbot a bit further. So next I asked a question that required a bit more nuance to answer. How can I get close to the Tao, and what is the point? Getting closer to the Tao, or to the natural order of the universe, is at the heart of Taoist philosophy. Here are some ways to do that. 1. Cultivate stillness and mindfulness. Taoism emphasizes the importance of quieting the mind, observing the present moment, and being mindful of our thoughts and actions. 2. Live in harmony with nature. Taoism teaches that we should live in balance with the natural world rather than seeking to dominate or control it. 3. Practice simplicity and humility. 4. Embrace change. As for the point of getting closer to the Tao, Taoism offers a way of living that is focused on inner peace, harmony, and balance. By following the Tao, we can cultivate a sense of connection to the natural world, find greater contentment and fulfillment, and lead a life that is more in alignment with our true nature. Okay, wow, so that was kind of surprising. I was kind of curious where this chatbot pulls all of its information from, and how it comes to its conclusions. With some more questioning and a little bit of research after the fact, I learned that ChatGPT generates its responses based on a vast amount of text that has been input into the software, in order to train it on how to most effectively hold a conversation with a human being. It gets the information it uses to answer questions from something like 30 billion words worth of data from books, Wikipedia, web articles, and other forms of writing on the internet, including multiple versions of the Tao Te Ching. I still wanted to push this friendly little software a bit further though. Specifically, I was really trying to find a point where AI hits its limit. I wanted to find something it couldn't do, to ask a question for which all of its machine learning turned out to be inadequate. I figured that in order to do this, I would need to gear more towards questions that a rational AI would be unable to comprehend. What do you think is the role of intuition? Intuition is a complex and multifaceted concept, and its role in our lives can vary depending on the individual and the context. Here are a few perspectives on the role of intuition. 1. As a guide to decision making. Many people believe that intuition can be a valuable tool for making decisions and solving problems. 2. As a source of creativity and inspiration. 3. As a means of connecting with a deeper sense of self. Overall, the role of intuition can vary depending on the individual and the context, and there is no one-size-fits-all answer to this question. However, many people find that cultivating a greater awareness of their own intuition can help them make more informed decisions, tap into their own creativity and inspiration, and connect with a deeper sense of purpose and meaning in their lives. Okay, once again, a pretty textbookish kind of answer. AI was showing me that it could describe intuition, but nothing more. Is it better to rely on intuition or on rational thinking and logic? The question of whether it's better to rely on intuition or on rational thinking and logic is a complex one, and there's no easy answer. Both intuition and rational thinking can be valuable tools in different situations, and it's often a matter of balancing these two approaches based on the specific context and the individual's own preferences and strengths. Here are some potential benefits and drawbacks of each approach. Now, the AI really had to think about this one for a minute. In the end, it basically ended up giving me a pros and cons list for both logic and intuition, and said that both are useful depending on the situation. But the next question I asked was the real kicker. Imagine you were a parent that has just experienced the untimely death of a child. How can Taoism be applied in your life to address this situation? As an AI language model, I can't fully comprehend the emotional complexities and pains of losing a child, and my response should not be taken as a substitute for seeking professional help. However, from a philosophical perspective, there are some principles of Taoism that may offer a perspective on coping with grief and loss. In Taoism, death is often seen as a natural part of the life cycle, rather than something to be feared or avoided. Death is viewed as a transformation, a return to the source from which all things arise. While the loss of a loved one can be painful and challenging, Taoism offers a way to understand death as part of the natural order of things. Now, honestly, I was very surprised by this answer. It was kind of crazy to me that a piece of software could come up with such an applicable response. I've always kind of felt like internalizing and applying philosophical concepts is sort of out of the realm of what a computer is able to do, but here's this AI telling me, with relevant and applicable details, how a person could use the principles of Eastern philosophy to work through the death of their own child. Pretty crazy stuff. Next, I wanted to see how well this chatbot could break down chapters of the Tao Te Ching, so I asked it, "Can you explain to me what is being said in the first chapter of the Tao Te Ching?" It then went on to break down the entire first chapter of the Tao Te Ching line by line, offering really good explanations of each line. Well, frankly, from what I've seen of ChatGPT so far, I can say that I am very impressed. But I do want to say a few more things about it before ending the video, because my little conversation with the chatbot, I gotta say, was honestly a little unnerving. I mean, philosophy, religion, the ways people think and feel, I'd always just kind of felt that this was the domain of people, sort of a sacred ground that computers could never touch. I've always been fine with computers doing what I assume they do best, crunch numbers and work through logical problems. Logic and math is the realm of computers, and behavior and philosophy is the realm of humans. But here was a computer explaining philosophical texts, applying them to real-life situations, and even performing self-analysis in a way. It honestly made me feel kind of uncomfortable. But this brings up a point worth considering. Perhaps human behavior isn't really outside the realm of logical calculation at all. After all, any decent historian can tell you that history repeats itself, because the world population tends to make the same handful of mistakes over and over again. Is human thought and behavior no more than a big, complex equation? If any of you know anything about trading stocks, which happens to be a bit of a hobby of mine, you'll know that trading nowadays mostly operates on the basis of technical analysis. Technical analysis consists of identifying patterns in the price movement of stocks and commodities which tend to repeat themselves. There are many different patterns of price movement that, although not fail-safe, can be relied upon to occur more often than not, which makes it possible to profit if one can consistently identify these patterns. Although no trading strategy works every time, a good strategy relies on identifying a specific set of circumstances in the price movement that tip the odds in the favor of the person that can identify and bet on the pattern. But what causes these patterns in the first place? The predictability of human behavior. Given a specific set of circumstances, people will behave the same way over and over again, and this predictability shows up in their trading. After all, changes in stock and commodity prices are only a function of supply and demand, and they reflect the behavior patterns of the people trading them. In fact, some people even rely on computer programs to identify these patterns and to initiate trades based on them, with some success. Maybe we humans aren't as complex and unpredictable as we tend to think we are. Maybe what we consider to be randomness or spontaneity in our behavior is really just a result of variables that we haven't taken into account. Maybe at the end of the day, it is all just math. Except for one thing. There is one variable that I've not been able to fit into this equation, and that is intuition. Intuition is kind of a funny thing because it doesn't seem to follow any rules of predictable behavior at all. A person acting on intuition is sort of a loose cannon in a way. They may act in any number of ways, even ways that run completely contrary to logic. You've probably experienced this at least once in your life to where you can understand what I'm talking about. Intuition is different than intrusive thoughts. Intuition is a thought or feeling that comes into your mind, usually to do something. And often it's something completely different from what you want to do, but somehow you just know that you should do it. It just feels right. Acting on intuition is an essential part of Wu Wei. Wu Wei doesn't mean never doing anything or always just doing what seems to be the easiest. It means following the gentle pushes and pulls of the universe as it pulls you in the direction of what your higher self ultimately wants. When we follow intuition, our behavior is not predictable or even always logical, because we're taking our cues from a source outside of our logical, rational brains. Perhaps intuition, then, is one of the few things left that computers cannot replicate. The 5 colors blind the eye. The 5 tones deafen the ear. The 5 flavors dull the taste. Racing and hunting madden the mind. Precious things lead one astray. Therefore, the sage is guided by what he feels and not by what he sees. He lets go of that and chooses this. Thanks for watching. Peace and blessings.